All right, hey everybody, welcome to Kent with Bent, whatever this number is, 103, I think?
103.
103, all right, there it is. Con with the Wind, which I believe was a name suggested by Steve Areno in my Discord.
Back in like what, November, I think?
Something like that. Yeah, and by the way, guys, just because I don't use those immediately doesn't mean they're not going to get used. And also, if you want to be on the list of people who can, in fact, suggest stream names for Tuesday night streams, just join the channel membership program or the Patreon, get in the Discord, and you'll have access to that text channel. Also,
Ooh,
Bitcores has joined the channel. Welcome at the tetrapod level, so everybody send some tetrapods to
nice.
Bitcores. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Thank you very much. We also have a membership milestone from TikTok, who's been a member for 9 months and is at the amniote level, which says Responsa in Genesi, magis quomo resposite in sacco. Sorry, I have to milk my like 2 Latin classes. Well, we'll take a drink for it. Oh, I forgot to pop up the drink counter.
Whoops.
Hmm. Let's see if we can fix that real quick.
Shouldn't take too long.
No, while we do, would you like to go through some of the drinking rules while I do that?
Sure. Um, Sometimes Kent makes jokes, and sometimes they're so bad that nobody laughs, including us, and then we take a drink for that. I call that one bad jokes. Sometimes one of us will make a prediction about something that Uncle Kent's going to say, and if he says it, and we get that prediction right, we take a drink for that. That's another rule. Sometimes we'll hear or see Godzilla or Mothra or another kaiju either audibly or in a super chat. If we see that, we'll take a drink. Sometimes Uncle Kent says something so stupid that you just have to stop what you're doing and take a drink.
Oh, and there's a Godzilla. We'll take a drink for that.
Sometimes Uncle Kent says something that happens to be right. How does he do it? We don't know. We're baffled. That's why we take a drink for that. Sometimes Kent tells a story about something that didn't happen, usually on an airplane next to a professor, or basically shower thoughts. We'll take a drink for that. What else do we have?
Stories that didn't happen. Did you get? Sometimes he just says something so dumb we have to.
We did that one.
Godwin's Law.
We did not do that one.
All right, so yeah, if Kent Hovind mentions the National Socialist German Workers' Party or prominent members thereof, or their various important, if rather horrific activities, especially during, like the 30s and 40s and whatnot, then we'll take a drink.
Yeah.
And also, if you guys super chat or membership milestone chat anything with any of the kaiju emojis in there, then we'll take a drink for that. That's only available to members, so if you want that, you can join the membership. It starts at $1.99 a month. Or if it's been gifted to you, or if, joined at a higher level, which is also great. Also, if anyone super chats anything to the effect that AIG are a bag of dicks, we will take a drink. And we have a handy emoji for that, which is in fact a sack that says AIG with some eggplants, or aubergine, if you will, in them. And Border Barbecue, who's been a member for 3 months and is at the amniote level, sends a Murphy thumbs up, a Godzilla, a Mothra, and then a whole bunch of my most hated emoji, the pelagic tunicate, but we will take a drink because it does have Godzilla.
And Mothra.
And Mothra, yes, that's true. All right. So, one thing is, if you want to participate in this game, please do so at your own risk. You know your limits. If you don't, then maybe this isn't the time to test them. If you decide to drink with us, please do not then go operate any heavy machinery, drive any cars, operate trains, cranes, planes, automobiles, none of that. Stay safe. I do not accept any responsibility or blame or liability for death, dismemberment, injury, destruction of property, or anything else that might happen as a result of you drinking to excess. Also,
Either.
yes. And if you want to play along with something other than alcohol, that's fine too. We have people who play along with water, tea, vape pens, all sorts of stuff.
What I like to do.
There you go.
All of that.
Okay. Now, before we actually get into this, there's some Kent Hovind news that is significant enough that I think we should probably mention it. Because if we don't, people will ask me why I didn't mention it.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And the only answer would be because I didn't think anyone would bug me about it, except since I know they will, we'll mention it. So, first of all, the Daily Beast put out a rather extensive article about all of the shady and, in some cases, potentially felonious activities going on at Dinosaur Adventureland, or technically just off campus, but still on property managed by Dinosaur Adventureland, either board members or just Kent. Because one of the things to remember is that Kent likes to say that certain things didn't happen at Dinosaur Adventureland, because technically that's right. Technically they happened in a house that's just off the property. So, yeah. Also, Too Young to Feel as Old, who's been a member for 6 months at the Seropsa level, says, got my golden top hat. AIG is, and then sends the bag o' dicks emoji. Take a drink. Dapper, in your opinion, what was the best U.S. military cold weather gear, and why was it the waffle top? I don't actually have any experience with cold weather gear in the military. Primarily because, well, even when we were in like the North Pacific, right off the coast of Alaska, we weren't issued any. It was just normal old clothes, and it got cold there. I mean, inside the ship it was not that bad, but if you went up onto the hangar bay or the flight deck or the fantail or something, it was chilly. Yeah. I never went to the forecastle while we were there, but I imagine that was chilly too. So yeah, I honestly don't have much of an opinion about that. Where was I though? Oh, Kent News, right. So, the Daily Beast article, if anyone wants to link that, please do. I don't have the link currently. But then more recently, and by recently I mean like late last night or early this morning or something, depending on where you are, Kent Hovind's main channel, Kent Hovind Official in all caps, was removed from YouTube for violation of community guidelines. Now, we knew that this might be coming for a while. He'd received more than one community guideline strike, which he'd reported on by streaming on other channels and saying that that's why he wasn't streaming on his main channel. Because your first community guideline strike is just a warning. Your second one is a temporary ban from streaming. And then I think after a third one, they can delete the channel. But community guideline strikes after a warning do like go away after a while, so it has to be within like a certain time frame. I don't know exactly who was reporting. I know I've reported his channel before when he's advocated for violence or given pseudoscience, like medical misinformation. Yeah. So what I will say is he is currently evading the ban by using his Dinosaur Adventureland channel, which I actually will link because I do have that handy. So here is the link to that. I just put it in the chat. Now, what I will say is keep an eye on that channel. And if you notice him advocating for violence or spreading phobia or spreading medical misinformation, like lies about the the pandemic or lies about cancer treatment, go ahead and report it. And also, technically, he is evading a ban, so if you want to, say, tweet at Team YouTube, point out that he's evading a ban, you can do that too. But do not simply go in there and report videos just because you don't like Kent Hovind. You actually need to watch the video and make sure that it actually violates terms of service before you report.
So, you have to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Unlike Kent.
Because here's the thing, if a video is not violating the terms of service, then it's not fair to report it as such. So, we'll keep that on the up and up. But yeah, currently Kent is probably evading the ban, which might get this channel taken down. Honestly, I would be fine with him being completely off the platform because it's one of the main ways he reaches people is the internet. And if he's off of it, then that's fewer people getting scammed. It's fewer people getting taken in to Dinosaur Adventureland where they give up all of their property and money and have nothing when he eventually kicks them out. It'll basically prevent that. Because let's remember, Kent isn't just some idiot on the internet. He is literally a cult leader who currently runs a cult compound that destroys the lives of real people. And the fact that you and I might disagree with them about science is not a good reason for their lives to be destroyed. So, yeah, the less reach Kent has, the better. And that's one of the reasons, it's a minor reason, it's one of the reasons why I'm mostly doing his older stuff, back when he wasn't technically a cult leader. But anyway, I think it's more than high time that we get actually into the meat of this Kent Hovind video. Now, when we last left off, Kent Hovind was telling us that he's been corrected many, many times about whether or not, quote-unquote, atheists think that people came from Iraq. And he's been told that no one thinks that. And he says, haha, yes, they do. And I tell them because they have to realize how stupid their own beliefs are, except that, you know, that's not anyone's belief. So the only thing it shows when he says that is how stupid he is, because he can't understand what evolution says, even when he's told it directly and simply in plain English.
He's so proud of himself, too, for being so wrong.
Yeah, it's very bizarre.
Baffling.
Yes.
It's really funny to me.
All right. Here we go. Let's jump into this.
Willingly ignorant is the best way I can describe it. Okay. Skeptics will say, how to know if it those millions of animals on the ark? I always say, well, how many animals are there?
So that's actually a reasonable question if one of your attacks is going for, like, no one couldn't fit the animals. Now, the solutions that are given are usually somewhat nonsensical and post hoc. But here's one of the things about the Ark, right? I think that the best options for the Ark are to focus on things like the impossibility of Noah's flood creating the geological evidence that we have on Earth. So, like, just the basic geology of Earth precludes the idea of a worldwide flood. Or things like every flood model proposed has massive heat problems, right? Like vaporizing the crust of the Earth and turning the Earth into a ball of plasma type heat problems.
Yeah.
Right. So compared to, like, oh, the Ark would just be a ball of plasma, that it might be crowded is a little bit minor. Like, it's like, I guess that's a problem, but, like, in the grand scheme of things, I don't really care. Let's just say that, you know, Noah's cubit was like 40 feet. Noah was a hypergiant. Sure, then there's room. It still doesn't help. Also, we didn't actually mention this as a drink trigger, but also for every gifted membership, we will take a drink. And Too Young to Feel This Old has just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, which went to Tesla Ranger, Paleo, welcome back Paleo, Interrobang, Chess Sirius, there we go, and Jason Hyatt. So here we go. We will take 5 more drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Ooh. I may not have stirred this rum and cola sufficiently, because those were some very rummy sips. Welcome, guys. Please, if you have Discord, go to your Discord and connect it to the YouTube account that you just got gifted subscriptions on, or memberships on, sorry. And it will, at least it should, automatically pop you into the Discord. That is the members and patrons only Discord. Anyway, Bent, I think it's time for more Kent. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, were there? I don't know. There's about 8,000 different kinds of animals, according to Creation X and Hilo magazine back in '97. And
I mean, interesting. The Ark encounter over at Exodus and Genesis lists a few thousand. And that actually shows one of the problems, right? What is a kind? No one knows. No one has any ideas.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Also, let me know if you guys can hear Kent well.
I don't know how many kinds there are. I don't know how many original created kinds there were. I don't think anybody here does either.
Yeah, but you should be able to get estimates if this is going to be your rescue device for how to get all the animals in the Ark, right? Like, you should have something.
Should be some math that he's done.
Yeah. Or at least he should be able to reference someone else's math without just saying Creation Ex Nihilo. That's not how I would pronounce it, but whatever.
He should have written a paper on the topic.
I mean, that would be ideal.
If he wants to be a scientist, he should do that.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to be a scientist. But if what he's doing is like what he thinks of as science communication, then at the very least, he should be able to cite the actual article. Oh, hey, look, there's a doggy on screen.
Who is there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hey, boy.
As we said, there is, in fact, a new dog. Right now, he's being very good, but he might start whining a little bit earlier. We might have to take him outside for a second. But we'll cross that bridge if and when we get to it. Also, do hit like. I'm noticing that over half of you haven't hit like, and you know what I have to say about that. It's that I currently like less than half of you half as well as you deserve.
But 8,000 is a reasonable number. So he only had to bring land animals, only bring those with nostrils. That wipes out all the bugs, all the insects.
Oh man, that's weird. Because I feel like let's
They
check.
didn't all go extinct.
Let's check the
all
Bible.
the insects. Oh, the Bible.
Yeah, we're gonna check the Bible, right?
King James version.
You know, I don't have a King James like in front of me handy.
You kind of do. You have the internet.
That's a good point. Oh, where's Genesis 8, man?
I think it's after 7.
Yeah, but I'm just saying on this website. You know what? Let's get Genesis. Pull up all of Genesis. Nope, because that just, it's like, do you mean Genesis Bible? Yes, I mean Genesis Bible, not the band. You. Okay. Genesis hits.
Found it.
Go to 8. Ah,
Chapter
what?
8, verse 8. Which Bible verse do you want me to read out loud?
I need to double check. Bit where it says that all flesh was destroyed. Oh, look at that. Jessica for 199 says
17.
AIG. Wait. Oh, Gab, era. Jessica for 199 says AIG are a bag of dicks, but says it backwards. That's clever. I like it. I'm going to take a drink. Maybe it is in 7. Maybe it's at the end of 7.
It talks about all flesh in chapter 8, but not dying. Just
Where does it say all flesh?
bring on verse 17. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth.
Hey, hold on. Let's read that again. Bring out every kind of creature that is with you, the birds, animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground. That's all the creeping things. Those are specifically the thing that Kent says don't have to be on there. That includes things like slugs, worms, insects, and I know because elsewhere those types of animals are actually defined in the Bible as the creeping kind. So Kent is just lying to you when he says the Bible says that he didn't need to bring in all of the things other than land animals.
They didn't have a nostril.
Whoops. All right, here we go.
Well, I only read it the King James version, not the King.
Oh.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, that's the one he likes.
Busted.
I'll bring babies. Of course, that's just common sense. Bring 2 of each kind, not 2 of each variety. So, and then the skeptics, when they
I
say,
don't
you
even
know,
want to
couldn't put
know.
Okay.
all those animals on
What
the
is a variety, but why? Why are you going to ask?
He's got no better definition of that than he does of species.
I'm sure he doesn't. We could go on and on and on about it, or we could just keep going.
Yeah. Katie Lewis asks how to accept a membership. If you click on the message saying that there have been memberships gifted, it should be at the top of your chat window. It should bring up a little allow memberships on the channel dialog. And then, assuming that you don't have, for some reason, have a brand account, then it should work. So, if that doesn't work, I will rely on one of my mods to go find like the YouTube tutorial on that and link it.
Ark. The 2 questions I ask them: how many were there? How many animals were there? They say they don't know. And I say, how big was the ark? They say, we don't know. All we know is he couldn't do it. Oh, I see. That's real objective science, you know.
Look, like I said, I do think that animals couldn't fit on the ark is one of the sillier objections. Just give it to them. Savage Cooper for $5 says, AIG is a sack of anatomical features that Walter Peck of the EPA is reported as lacking. Reference Venkman et al. 1984. Okay, we'll take a drink. Amazing.
They don't even know what they're talking about. They just really don't like the idea of a Bible that is accurate because, you know, that might mean they're in trouble someday.
See, this is one of the things that I don't get, right? Like, I feel like if you could demonstrate conclusively, or even with very high confidence, that these parts of the Bible were literally historically true, that most people would be like, oh, okay, well, I guess I know what I'm going to do now, which is, go be like either Jewish or Christian, depending on how far you want to take the things in the Bible being literally true, right? So, but that's not what tends to happen. I really don't think there's a whole big population of people who are like, I think the Bible is true, but I don't want it to be, so I'm going to pretend it's not. I just don't think that that's a big thing out there. Also, Jessica, who's been a member for 4 months and is at the amnio level, sends a Godzilla emoji, so we will take a drink for Godzilla. Shane Wilson has joined the channel at the level of Tetrapod. Welcome, Shane Wilson. Guys, send some Tetrapod emojis. All right, here we go.
It really is a either conscious or subconscious desperate attempt to eliminate God's authority in their life.
You know, it's weird because most of the former Christians I know actually tried really hard to stay Christians.
Right?
I don't actually know too many people who were like, oh man, I got out of Christianity ASAP the minute I could. Look, I can't say I don't know any of those people, right? Because there are those people who they hated going to church as a kid. They never really believed any of it. And then once they were no longer living at home, they just stopped going to church. But the people who got up and talk about being former Christians and things like that, they almost to a man were all desperately trying to stay in, and they found out that they just couldn't. They just couldn't convince themselves that it was true no matter how hard they tried. So I just feel like Kent is he's pretending that his opponents are something that they're not, because it makes it easier for him to dismiss them if they have bad motives for saying they believe things that they don't believe. It's gross. I'm going to take a drink for it because it's dumb, and also I think it's kind of immoral to just imply that other people always have bad motives like that.
If you don't believe what I lie about with science, then you're not going to believe the rest of the Bible, and you're going to go to hell.
Oh no! Except that you can believe other parts of the Bible.
But maybe just stop lying about the science then, Kent.
Right?
Maybe be the one that tells the truth, so that you're more trustworthy.
I think that ship has sailed for Kent.
Absolutely, it has.
That's why the scoffers are willingly ignorant of the creation and the flood. They just don't like the idea that God has the authority to judge sin.
Also, the fearmonger, who's been a member for 3 months at the tetrapod level, says, "Inshep tep och it." I'm actually not familiar with the word tep. What's tep? I don't know that one. I'm going to look it up right now. Because, you know what? I don't know all of the Klingon words, believe it or not. Tep. Oh, cargo. Okay, so AIG are penis cargo. Got it. I like that. No, yeah, we'll take a drink for that. Tep. And then, of course, Icarus for 419 euros says AIG is a bag of dicks upside down. Very clever. Yeah, no, I like in. Oh, well, okay. One thing, you do need to put an apostrophe before the I in inshep, and you also need to capitalize the S. Then you've got it. Also, you're missing an H in the high. There needs to be a GH. So I will type out the correct spelling. So it's inshep tep oh at it.
Hang on, lessons. In the middle of Kent with Bent.
There it is. Now it's
Perfect.
properly typed out. Yeah. Look, we always have to make sure that everyone gets their Klingon right. I was actually asking ChatGPT the other day I think it was today. If it could speak any Klingon. It was like, oh yeah, sure I can. So I'm asking it some basic Klingon questions and it's getting them all wrong. No, you can't. Oh, take a drink for Godzilla. I also found out that it's actually pretty decent at Arabic. And it's like a C+ student at Old English. Because I asked it to translate some Old English, and it did pretty well, but when it got to the rare declension nouns, like sundu for sun, S-O-N, it was just like, I'm just going to make up declensions. Who cares? Just make up case endings. Anyway, here we go.
Well, I'm sorry. He does, and he's going to do it again. And you better get ready for it. So, the skeptics believe, of course, 20 billion years ago there was a Big Bang, and 4.6 billion years ago the Earth.
I'm actually going to let the 20 billion slide because this was recorded a few decades ago, and I think that it probably wasn't the worst estimate when this was.
He's within an order of magnitude.
Oh, he's definitely within an order of magnitude. Yeah.
Cooled down, and then it developed a hard rocky crust as it cooled down, and it rained on the rocks for millions of years. This is what the textbooks teach. Millions of years of torrential rains created the oceans. And swirling in the waters of the oceans is a bubbling broth of complex chemicals.
Wait, hold on. Paleologo says that he debated ChatGPT on young Earth creationism, the origin of energy, and the formation of the Grand Canyon. You need to let me know how that went. Like, send me a Twitter DM or something, man, because I need to know how that went. Because I actually was trying to get it to like produce like short like speeches in favor of young Earth creationism, and I managed to trick it into doing it. Because normally it says no, I cannot produce results that are scientifically inaccurate. But I figured out a way to trick it, and I'm not going to tell you how I did that because that might be the basis for a video later. So, but I did manage to get it to produce pro-young Earth creationist blocks of text.
Okay.
Progress from a complex chemical soup to a living organism is very slow. Well, I guess it is. So slow it's stopped. Doesn't even happen. Nobody's ever seen it happen. Now, for years, people have done experiments and proven that non-living material does not come to life. That is called spontaneous generation. That'll be a good quiz question, Becky. Spontaneous generation is the belief that non-living material can come to life. 200 years ago, there were formulas in books how to create mice.
Okay.
Put a bunch of old rotten rags and wheat in a corner of a building.
I hate when that happens. It happens every once in a while. And here's the thing, right? It's a problem with GOM Player, which is what I'm using, because GOM Player isn't quite as stable as some of the other media players, but it's really good at saving my spot, which to me is worth it. So,
yeah,
you know, we'll just open that back up.
And they have to say yes, but they don't want to.
We'll get back to where we were. So Kent basically here was talking about spontaneous generation, which is not at all the same thing as abiogenesis, and we're going to get into that in a second after he finishes a little bit of his talk about mice and rags and maggots and meat or whatever.
Share that with me,
I guess it is. So slow it's stopped. Doesn't even happen. Nobody's ever seen it happen.
Share Kent with me, please.
For years, people have done experiments and proven that non-living material does not
come
to
the video of Kent, please.
Oh, right. I forgot that doesn't happen automatically. Because
it does not.
I don't know how technology works. I'm a dinosaur.
Thank you.
Literally, I'm a dinosaur. I'm from the Mesozoic era.
I don't know how you click things with your dinosaur hands.
So I have to use like one of those things where like it tracks my eye movement, you know? Except that I can't really move my eyes and my skull, so I have to actually just turn my head. It's really inconvenient.
It sounds like a hassle.
Yeah. Because like you mammals are lucky because you have muscles that move your eyes in your heads. Yeah, I don't have that. I just have to turn my whole head. It's very, very inconvenient.
That does seem very inconvenient.
But that's why, you see birds making those rapid head movements. It's because they can't turn their eyes. The only way for them to look in a new direction is to turn their whole head.
Balls.
Yeah. Anyway, here we go.
Life. That is called spontaneous generation. That'll be a good quiz question, Becky. Spontaneous generation is the belief that...
I mean, that is actually a pretty reasonable quiz question.
That non-living material can come to life.
Okay, so... that's a really bad definition. It's bad enough that I'm going to drink for it. It's really dumb. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about vitalism. Vitalism is a now defunct idea about what makes things alive. Because, for most of history, the idea of something being alive has been very distinct from something that is not alive, either it being inanimate or just dead, right? And so there's been a question, what makes something alive? Because it's not very obvious. Oh, hi there, doggy.
Dog is just climbing up on me.
Aw, what a cutie.
Hi, Carmen, how are you?
So, for a very long time, this consensus was there was some kind of vital energy. This was something unique to life, and if you had it, it's what made you alive. And where it was concentrated, life would just sort of have to spring up because it had this vitalizing energy. It was just sort of created life. And so the idea behind spontaneous generation is that certain things that had vital energy but were no longer alive because maybe they had recently died would start to like sort of emanate what residual vital energy they had, which could then manifest into things like maggots or mice or flies or rats or things like this, right? Which is not to say that people didn't know that you couldn't like breed these such animals in the more normal way, but they thought that they also could be created by this vital energy. Now, vitalism has since been very strongly disconfirmed. Life is simply normal chemical reactions that are granted very, very complicated and that maintain a careful balance with the outside world, both chemically and thermodynamically. But there isn't a special energy that only life has. And goodness, DM Wing has just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Went to Space Dragon, Rhea Jays. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Chesh was gifted a membership. Hey, Chesh can finally join the Discord server. Tom Boogan, I'm going to go with Boogan for now. And Alien Bird will all gifted memberships. So let's take some drinks. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Now, abiogenesis is not spontaneous generation. It does not involve any idea of vital energy or modern life coming out of hunks of meat, right? Abiogenesis is the idea that organic chemistry, which is basically just chemistry involving the element carbon, proceeded in such a way on early Earth that it eventually developed lifelike qualities, and then eventually it became something we could minimally, there you go, consider to be life. Now, it runs into a few complications here. Like, what do we actually mean by life? Like, are viruses alive? Maybe. Some people say yes, some people say no. I know Dr. Dan Stern Cardinal, there you go, is very much in the pro-viruses are alive side of things, being himself a virologist, which, and I think he has some good arguments. I don't know that I'm completely on board. I'm sort of agnostic on that question. Mostly because whether or not I call viruses alive doesn't change anything about the virus. The virus doesn't care. But then, yeah, after these natural, non-vital energy-based chemical reactions start up life, then biological evolution takes over. But even before that, there can be selection via natural selection for chemical systems in prebiotic Earth. Because if chemical systems are persistent and they can auto-catalyze, which means that they can encourage their own formation, while leaving the the catalyzing chemicals in place, gaining more, then those that do that more efficiently are selected for. Also, more stable chemicals are selected for over time. So evolution kind of has something to say about the process of abiogenesis. But it's not the same thing as biological evolution, nor is abiogenesis the same thing as spontaneous generation. Disconfirming spontaneous generation, which is things like maggots just emerging spontaneously from beef, is not at all the same as disproving or disconfirming the possibility of naturalistic abiogenesis. Now, on the other hand, abiogenesis is definitely something that science is just beginning to unravel, and I'm not sure that we'll ever actually have a definitive answer as to how it occurred on Earth. But that doesn't mean it didn't. It doesn't mean it's been disconfirmed. So here we go.
200 years ago, there were formulas in books.
Formulae.
How to create mice. Put a bunch of old rotten rags and wheat in a corner of a building and leave it for 3 weeks, and it will turn into mice.
I mean, in some sense, it kind of will, because the mice will eat the wheat, and then they'll turn that into their own biomass, and you will have turned the wheat into mouse parts.
I think he's going for a joke that isn't landing.
Oh, you think so? All right, well, we'll take a drink for a joke that doesn't land. Someone's getting some zoomies.
He's got that smirk on his face. I don't know if people are going to laugh or not.
Also, Tommy Dragon, who's been a member for 10 months, sends a Godzilla and a drink emoji with a... Tommy Dragon is at the tetrapod level. Those doggies behaving?
Not really.
Pick another drink for the Godzilla emoji. Uh-oh. We might have to give Bent a little bit while he takes care of some doggy problems, but we're going to hit play on Kent here, and we're going to continue.
Well, duh. Okay.
Yeah, that was a joke that no one laughed at except for Kent.
If they take a piece of rotten meat, set it outside for 4 days, it'll create flies. Flies are created by rotting meat.
Yeah, and we all know that they're attracted by it. Now, Carrie Bronson for $10 says, can't stay just dropping by to give a donation and say Kent Hovind could get lost going down a one-way street. Yeah, he could.
The truth.
Although, here's something. I know of a place where that actually can happen. It's called Boston, because Boston is a horrible, horrible mess. Boston is one of those cities that never had the common decency to burn to the ground at any point so that it could be rebuilt in a sensible manner. Although they did have a massive flood of molasses, so that's cool. You don't get that very often.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
It was very dangerous.
It's said that on the north side of Boston, you can still smell the molasses on a hot summer day.
Is it true?
I don't think so. I've been there, and I didn't smell any molasses. However, Max Miller from Tasting History did an episode on it where he made Boston brown bread. And my goodness, did that bring back memories for me, because when I was a kid, I loved that stuff. If you don't know what Boston brown bread is, it's a simple bread made with molasses that's made in a can by steaming it. And I like to lightly toast it and put some butter on it, and it is delicious. Go get some. Yeah, you can't really find it like commercially outside of the Boston area. So you kind of have to make it yourself if you want it and you don't live in the Boston area, unless you like order it from far away. But yeah, it's a local delicacy in the Boston area of Massachusetts, which I spent some time with my human family, as you might know. So here we go.
That's what they taught. Well, of course, Francisco Redi and Louis Pasteur came along and did their experiments and proved, hey, folks, it doesn't happen.
I don't like the word prove, but I will say he is right about who did that and about when they did it. So we'll take a drink for Kent and something right.
It doesn't happen, okay? Non-living material does not come alive.
Yeah, as Cecil Ranger points out, the Great Molasses Flood killed 21 people and injured 150. There's even a report of someone getting stuck under a car in molasses. And he was stuck so firmly that when rescuers tried to pull him out, they yanked his arm clean out of its socket.
Yikes.
Yeah, it was no joke. Like, it sounds like a funny thing, right? A molasses flood. It was a pretty big deal. Yeah, it's
very sticky.
Very sticky, very viscous. It was also, at least some of it was very hot. So apparently there were some burns.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a joke. It was actually a legitimate, actual horrific tragedy. Yeah. Anyway.
But here's a textbook in 1994 teaching the kids progress from a chemical soup to a living organism is very slow. Now this is sheer baloney.
Now I'm hungry.
Now he's welcome to believe that. I don't care what this author believes.
Kent, we all know you care deeply about it. You put in what passes for your dissertation, which, by the way, we read through the whole thing. I think it took us 6 episodes to get through. But we did it primarily with Bent, Vishanti, and Chesh. So, yeah, and we know you care deeply about whether or not people believe in your silliness.
It really does.
Yeah. Space Dragon says, so it would be kind of like getting caught in a lava flow in some ways. I think a lava flow would kill you faster than a molasses flow. But also you'd have a higher chance of surviving getting caught in a molasses flow. Because ultimately, if you can hold out long enough and you don't, like, drown, I mean, you can eventually get out of there with, like, enough water to dissolve away the molasses. But the cleanup effort took months. Like, literally months of cleanup effort. The moral of the story is, hey, don't have some guy who only cares about getting the job done as quickly and cheaply as possible be in charge of designing your molasses tank that you then just put in an unzoned area next to housing. Don't do any of those things. Really bad idea. Yeah, that was actually one of the impetuses to create zoning laws in Boston to prevent such things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't happen again.
Right. Also, of course, there were protections for the company from liability, because of course there were. Because even back then, corporations got special treatment from the government. Because
yeah,
that's That's a big thing. It's always happening. Which, it's always weird to me because it's hard to find a political ideology that is officially like pro-sweetheart deals for companies, but it's also hard to find a party that doesn't engage in that. So, anyway, that's enough politics. This isn't a political channel. We're going to hit play.
That's not science. That doesn't belong in a science book, that's for sure. Here's a college textbook. Look what it says. The first self-replicating, in other words, able to reproduce, the first self-replicating systems must have emerged in this organic soup. I have to watch. In evolutionist literature, they use that word emerged all the time. You know, man emerged from the
They're
apes.
just science textbooks. They're not evolutionist literature.
Yeah, there is that. And also, I don't know what his problem with the word emerge is. I mean,
It's too fancy for him.
I guess. I mean, it just means that something
Two
came
whole
about
syllables.
without any particular intentionality from an outside source. Which I guess that's why he doesn't like it, because he wants everything to be direct action of God. In fact, you know what?
Right.
I feel like Kent Hovind would make a good Muslim of the type that accepts like the foolishness of the philosophers kind of theology. Which, in case you guys don't know, this was a debate that happened in sort of like what we would think of as like the medieval period, but over in the Islamic world where those terms don't really mean much. But anyway, there was this debate over rationalism versus basically God just doing everything directly. And on one side, there was the whole idea that God had created the world with certain set rules and that they were predictable, and God let the universe operate according to these rules, and he wasn't the direct cause of literally everything, even though he was sovereign over the whole universe. Then the opposing school of thought was basically, no, literally everything is a direct miracle from God. The fact that fire is hot is because God makes it hot this time. If he wanted to make it cold next time, he could do it, and there's nothing that could stop him. If he wanted to make elephants the size of small cats, he could do that too tomorrow, and nothing you could do or say would change that. I think Kent Hovind would make a perfect one of those kind of Muslims.
Seems kind of unfalsifiable.
Oh, it's super unfalsifiable. But, I mean, it's still a strain within Islamic thought. Now, I do want to point out that the rationalist side of Islam were also busy doing things like making giant strides in the sciences of optics and making huge advancements in various chemical processes and things like. So I'm not sitting here being like, oh yeah, the Muslim world was full of anti-intellectual people who thought that everything was a direct miracle. That's also not true. But it was, and to some extent still is, a strain of thought in the Islamic world. Anyway, here we go.
Life
Also, Apocalypse Meow says, I vote for elephants the size of small cats for sure. That would be adorable. I would totally want one as a pet.
Yeah, me too.
Tiny little elephant. Be great.
That would be amazing.
Now, I have a big soft spot in my heart for elephants as a whole, so, that helps.
emerged from the soup. What does that mean? I mean,
it means that they came about from the soup without any direction from any kind of directing or intelligent agent. That's what it means. Now, it's fair to object to that, because if you think that, like, theistic evolution is the right answer or whatever, then okay. But also, I think Archer might have a plastic bag. That might be something that we might want to take away from him.
Okay, I'm going to tend to the dog, and I'll be back.
Sorry about that, guys. New puppy in the house.
explain that to me, would you please? What happens is they're able to psychologically hide behind that word emerged. Well, it must have happened, we emerged.
I don't see how this is psychologically hiding. I mean, is he being used in a very appropriate, literal way?
It's meaningless.
No, we already... The fact that you don't know a basic vocabulary word like emerge doesn't mean that it's meaningless. I'm taking a drink. That's dumb. Alright. Oh, and Goop23 says, elephants are my favorite animal. Look, that is a very solid favorite animal. And also, Fade to Gray says, I vote for mouse-sized mammoths. Well, here's the thing. Mammoths are elephants, because mammoths are actually more closely related to Asian elephants than they are to African elephants, which means they nest within Elephantidae. And I, for one, consider anything in the family Elephantidae to be an elephant. So there you go.
Doesn't mean a thing. It's not empirical. There's no scientific data to back this up. Nobody.
Okay, so here's some scientific data. We know that at one point there was no life on Earth. then we actually begin to have evidence of life on Earth in terms of actual chemical and even microfossil evidence of, very early things like prokaryotes, very early prokaryotes and things like that, right? So something had to change in between there. Now, our current ideas about abiogenesis involve various bits of complex chemistry occurring in places like near Montmorillonite clay. I can hardly say that word. Also, certain kinds of granite can help with this in terms of providing substrates for further chemical reaction with not the rocks themselves, by the way, but organic chemicals that form spontaneously. And we know they form spontaneously because we can see them forming abiotically now, both on Earth and in space, as well as in labs. And so, while it's true we don't know exactly what happened, exactly where life started, exactly how it started, to say that there's no scientific data to back this up is just not true. Also, I'm seeing like 46 people who haven't hit like. Help me out, guys. Hitting like really helps the channel. It's a big deal. Yeah.
Nobody's ever seen non-living material come alive. Nobody's ever seen soup come alive. It just doesn't happen.
We wouldn't actually expect to see that just happening out in the wild. There's a big reason for it. It's because right now, modern life exists. And modern life is really good at breaking down organic chemicals for energy, which means any of the same types of chemistry that might have been going on in the prebiotic Earth that might now be going on are going to be almost immediately metabolized by modern, very efficient life, as opposed to in the prebiotic Earth where there was no such very efficient life. And even the first life that would have appeared would be relatively basic, simple, and not very efficient. But efficient enough to just get by, basically. So, yeah.
So they believe, 20 billion years ago, Big Bang. And I will try to be sweet about it, but it's so fun to be sarcastic, I guess.
While it is a joke that isn't landing, I do also kind of have to agree. So we're going to take like a drink for like half being right, half joke that didn't land. Also, Rossina Keller, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Welcome back. Says,
Thank
for
you.
$9.99, don't screw with corvids. They know how to plan cold revenge. In 100 million years, this planet will be ruled by corvids that look like crabs. I liked that already. And then you added that look like crabs to bring in the carcinization. And then that's just a chef's kiss super chat right there. Mwah. Perfect.
Very good. Very well done.
Very, very well done. I really like that one. Bringing in so many of the awesome evolution and biology and zoology memes.
I have a blast. You having the same problem, Eric? It's fun. It's tough to be sweet, but you try, I like to make fun of what, I guess I have the Elijah personality in me, What's the matter? Is your God sleeping? Cry a little louder, huh? So
was Elijah a terrible person? Is that what he's going for?
Well, first it was a joke that didn't land. Take a drink for that. So he's talking to the story in the Bible where Elijah sets up basically a competition with the priests of Baal to see whose god can light a fire spontaneously. So he sets up an altar, and they set up an altar, and then he pours water over the wood, and then I don't think the priests of Baal do that. I don't remember exactly.
No.
But then they both pray to their gods, and then
he waits a while they pray.
Yeah, and he does mock them a bit, saying, hey, maybe you should pray louder, maybe Baal is sleeping.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the story he's referencing. Okay, here we go.
Need some people in the creation movement that are sweet and gentle and, work with these folks. And bless God, I'm thankful there's people like that. But it's not me. I'm not one of them, okay?
Just keeps telling jokes that can't land. Huh. And the weird thing is, I've seen Kent land jokes before in front of audiences.
He's landed jokes where I'm the only one who laughed.
Yeah, I mean, look, Kent has some okay dad humor in his repertoire.
You need the Air Force, but you also need the Marines to get in there and blow stuff up, right? Yeah, right, Jan?
Was he just making fun of the Air Force?
I don't know what he's doing.
I'm going to go ahead and say yes and take a drink. And, look, I know the Air Force is the butt of jokes. And, I mean, there is a reason for it. But also, they do some pretty impressive stuff, even if I'm not always a fan of the things that they're doing or the reasons they're doing it for.
Pilots do a lot of crazy things, and they're sitting down the whole time. So why wasn't I allowed to sit down on watch?
You were if you were standing certain watches.
Actually, I was standing a watch that sat down all the time,
Yeah.
most of the time. So
Also, it's not like people who weren't standing those watches didn't sit down anyway.
that's very true.
They just weren't supposed to.
They just didn't get caught.
Right.
And then you need people to go in and fix things, you need the politicians to go in there and mess it up again so we can have another war 20 years later and let the bankers get rich again.
Yet another joke that didn't land about bankers.
I don't know. I'm drinking for getting something right.
Oh, yeah, you know what? That's another good one. Because, I mean, there is some truth to the... Look, I'll say this.
Like wars.
Kent Hovind's anti-government stances is never more reasonable than when he's talking about the military-industrial complex. I'll give him that. He and I could probably agree a whole lot on the idea that most U.S. military interventions have been, one, dumb, and two, highly, highly immoral.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right. So I will show them. I have learned in debates or in talking to people, one of the most effective things you can do is to show them what they believe instead of just tell them what they believe.
Okay, but Ken, you always straw man people.
Always. And on purpose.
I'm taking a drink for that. Like, come on, Kent. You can't say that and then... Well, I mean, you can.
His ego is that big that he will believe his own straw man over what people tell them they actually believe when it comes to believing in evolution.
Yeah, actually, you know what? It was probably pointed out that when Kent says bankers, he probably means Jews, even though that's not a good characterization of people who run the financial system. Because, spoiler alerts, guys, banking is not a Jewish monopoly. This is not medieval Europe. So... yeah, there actually is a good chance that he just means Jews. I know he either sells or he sold the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is a very, very fake it's an anti-Semitic screed that was basically forged in Russia and was supposed to be revealing the secret plot to take over the world that the horrible Jewish rabbis had, except none of it's true. And yeah, he was selling it and promoting it. If you go look at the archive of this show, you'll find him doing it. I don't remember the episode, and I mean, there's a lot of them, so good luck. But yeah, that's a thing. And I didn't catch it, so good job on who did. Was Embiid. So thank you very much, the Embiid, because look, I sometimes miss the anti-Semitic bits because when I think of things like bankers, I actually think of real people who run banks who aren't just a cabal of Jews. It's actually a fairly diverse bunch of people, all of whom have a tendency to engage in somewhat unsavory practices, shall we say. But the fact that, like, Kent's history of anti-Semitism, he almost certainly does mean Jews when he's quote-unquote bankers. My Unfinished Journey says for $2, AIG is like an ilk of inchworms. I think that's close enough. We'll take a drink for that. So yeah, I almost feel like adding a drink trigger for anti-Semitism, but nah.
Because somehow when you
Godwin's
say...
law.
Yeah, Godwin's law is already close enough.
4 billion years ago...
Vishanti says, I'm late, what did I miss? Oh, yeah, you missed Kent being probably anti-Semitic. Sorry. I mean, you can't be too surprised, though. It's Kent.
The brain shuts off. You can't comprehend 4 billion years, and so you just
shut off. That's true.
True. Sure, we'll take a drink for Kent getting something right. His brain does shut off when he thinks about 4 billion. Look, here's the thing.
In
right?
general, but yeah,
it's not easy to think about deep time intuitively. It's not intuitive, but you can get to the point where things like that make sense. Look at the math. You can look at geology. Like 4 billion isn't an incomprehensible. I don't actually
imagine living through that much time, but
oh yeah,
like I don't think it's that difficult.
Yeah,
you can compare 4 billion to 13.8 billion pretty easily.
Yeah,
just think, wow, it must have happened. But when you put it on a timeline and say, okay, look what you guys believe. 20 billion years ago, Big
Again, we're letting that slide because of when this was.
Bang. What exploded? Where did it come from? 4.6.
He doesn't understand the Big Bang.
What exploded is nothing. That's
He
nothing
doesn't understand
exploded.
it's an expansion. He doesn't. Well, because the one textbook he likes to quote use the word explosion in it.
Yeah.
And so that's the only textbook he'll ever quote again.
A Savage Cobra says, do you actually think Kent has the math for that? No, to be fair. And Caliban says, AIG saculum nequeunt. But Caliban, it doesn't count for drinks unless it's a super chat. And I will be very honest with you about that. It's to encourage donations to the channel, because the channel currently supports itself. It's literally just that. I appreciate donations. Speaking of which, Jessica for $1.99 says AIG are a bag of, and then sends every single possible phallic emoji. Let's see, we got an eggplant, a banana, a baguette, a hot dog, a bone, and a bottle of wine. That's impressive. My goodness, going right. I mean, like, you get the eggplant right up front, and then you just sail right through and into banana, all the other ones. Actually reminds me, at one point I sent a friend of mine a eggplant emoji after she asked what I was cooking. Apparently that confused her because she forgot that that's actually an eggplant and it's not just a picture of a dick. And I had to remind her that, like, no, that is actually an eggplant, and that's what I'm cooking is eggplant. Remember, everybody, it's an eggplant.
Billion years ago, the Earth cooled down. Has anybody ever seen a planet form?
You can see it right now.
Yeah. Hey, Caliban, look, if you don't have the means to super chat, definitely don't do it.
No. Is there any evidence you can get a bunch of fragments together and it'll form a perfectly round ball?
Yes.
Yes. Goop23 said for $2 what Caliban said. You know what? That's close enough. We'll take a drink.
These are easy questions, Ken.
Yeah, so the evidence that things can form a perfect, quote-unquote, perfect sphere, because I'll point out that the Earth is not a perfect sphere. If it were, it would not have differences in elevation, but it does. But basically, the Earth is more or less at hydrostatic equilibrium, which is what Kent is really trying to talk about. And yeah, there is evidence. Things pull together under the effect of gravity. That's what gravity does, right? Mass attracts mass. So if you have massive particulates in some kind of orbit, and there's any kind of difference in density in that orbital area, then it will start to condense, because that's how physics work. Actually, very basic physics. It's the kind of physics that Kent normally accepts. Also,
yeah, it's pretty basic gravity.
Yeah.
And Kent believes in gravity, so you would think he would believe in that, but no.
Also, Savage Cobra for $5 says, donation in the name of Caliban, AIG, saculum nequeunt. All right, we'll take a drink for that then. And actually, with that, I think it is time to take a break, because this will be the last drink that I have in this glass. So, we are currently at 37 drinks. I am going to switch us over to the intermission. I'm going to get another drink, and we will be back shortly. But in the meantime, enjoy, well, first, probably some ads, because, again, I got bills to pay. And also, the musical stylings of one Bent Hovind.
That's me.
All right, and we are back. Thank you everyone for sticking with me, those of you who did. I really appreciate it. Also, make sure you do hit like. It really helps the channel out. Before we actually get into it, we have one thing. We have Olivia Williams for 2 beaver bucks saying, I'm leaving for work, with a Mothra emoji, so we will take a drink for the Mothra emoji. Olivia, in the off chance that you're still here, I hope that you have a wonderful evening at work. I'm assuming evening because with donating Canadian dollars, I'm pretty sure you probably live in Canada, which means it's probably evening for you. You know, because of how geography works. Also, yeah. Theros Rex for $5 says, been a while, nerds, how's it going? Oh, and apparently Ken's channel has been deleted by YouTube. Hallelujah, may he be gone for good, I hope. Well, first, welcome back, Theros Rex. Yeah, Kent Hoven's main channel has been deleted. However, he has a backup channel, which again, I'm going to link just in case anyone wants to take a look at the videos and see if maybe they violate community guidelines, or if anyone wants to, you know, say tweet it at Team YouTube to let them know that Kent Hoven is maybe avoiding a ban. You know, just in case. Right? Just in case. Before we get right back into Kent Hoven, I want to say that we have the channel has a Patreon. And I would really appreciate it if any of you who can afford it might look into that. I do get a higher percentage of that than I do channel memberships, so it is better for me if people go to the Patreon, although I'm not going to, you know, ask you to switch or something. If you would prefer a membership, please go for it. But basically, what I would like is for the Patreon to be enough to make the channel just sustainable. And I think that's somewhere around the 1,000 per month area. Currently, we have about 300, I think 50-ish to go. And the reason for that is that it doesn't actually, the per month doesn't actually reflect what I collect each month because of annual subscriptions. So if we could get it to that, I think it would probably make it so that I don't have to worry too much about YouTube just nuking the monetization on this channel, which, I mean, they just do, right? But whether you join the memberships or the Patreon, you get access to a whole bunch of perks. At $5 or above, you're in the credits. 20 or above, I'll say your name in the credits. You get access to the Patreon and member-only server on Discord, which is where we do a lot of stuff. Like after this, we'll watch some Power Rangers. I'm relatively easy to contact on there. Sometimes I just hang out and chat with people in there. We have all sorts of different channels. You can suggest names for the Tuesday night stream. We have tabletop role-playing game channels. We have regular gaming channels. We have like venting, heavy stuff and support channel. You know, we've got a lot of stuff in there. So I think it's a great place. I like it in there. I think we get along for the most part pretty well. I mean, there are disagreements, right? And things can get heated every once in a while, but that's true in any community. And yeah, it helps me out. But if you can't afford it, please don't do that. And I don't want to take any more of this time up. So we will be proceeding. And the Fearmonger says, Montana is now considering a bill that would prohibit schools from teaching scientific theories as fact. I think we all understand what that actually means. Yeah, that's going to be an anti-evolution. Liz D says, how much for you to change the channel name to Dapper Liz D? $500,000 US.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so Theos Rex says the 5th video on Kent's new channel appears to be Matt talking about Pride Month. Yeah. That channel might not last that much longer either. Look, I know that what I and other few people did is we checked on Kent Hoven every once in a while to see if he was violating terms of service, and we reported him when he did. And I do think that things like that is why his channel was deleted. So, hey, check his new channel. And like I said at the beginning of the stream, do not report videos that don't deserve it. If he has not violated terms of service, as far as you can tell, don't report the video. But if he does, please do. A Savage Cobra says cash or card. I'm going to need that to be cash.
Yeah.
$500,000 in cash delivered to me. Or maybe to a P.O. box that I might get. I don't know. Anyway, here we go.
How did all this stuff melt and get together?
Well, first, it didn't melt until after it, was falling into the conglomerate. But the way it got together was gravity.
Pretty-
Just gravity. We take a drink for Kent not knowing what gravity is, even though I know he knows what gravity is.
I know he doesn't because I wrote it down in my notes that Kent doesn't understand gravity.
That's true. He doesn't understand it, although he does know what it is, right? Like at the basic level.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't.
That was back in August, right after he didn't understand floods or the size or shape of the Earth.
Goodness.
Because those were things that he doesn't understand.
Savage Cobra says, "What about a fake check?" Well, when the check bounces, then I'm not gonna change the name. I'll wait for a check to clear, right? Vishanti points out, you know what did melt? The entire Earth during the flood because of all the heat. Yeah, good point. Oh, I hit the wrong
Earth
button.
doesn't have enough heat to do that. Is it all bombarded?
Wait, hold on.
You ever seen a planet form?
I need to hear that whole thing.
No. Is there any evidence you can get a bunch of fragments together and it'll form a perfectly round ball?
Mm-hmm.
How did all this stuff melt and get together? The Earth doesn't have enough heat to do that.
He thinks the idea of the accretion of the Earth resulting in a molten Earth is because of the internal heat of the Earth as it currently exists. What the actual...
He doesn't understand any of this. He just doesn't understand any of this.
Oh my goodness.
So far above his level of comprehension.
The energy is primarily coming from the potential energy of the planetesimals that are accreting into the Earth. When you convert potential energy into kinetic energy, what does it then turn into after the thing hits the center of mass?
Thermal energy.
Thermal energy. You can. It doesn't actually even take all that much to test this, right? Take a tall waterfall and measure the water at the top. Measure the temperature of the water at the top of the waterfall and the bottom of the waterfall. You know what you'll find in every case? It's warmer at the bottom of the waterfall. Why? Because that potential energy of the water up at the top got converted into kinetic energy as the water fell, and then once it hits the bottom of that pool, what happens to that energy? It gets turned into thermal energy, and it heats up the bottom. Now, I'm not saying that the bottom of every waterfall is going to be a warm, balmy place to take a bath or something, right? Like, it can still just be cold, but it's going to be less cold than the water at the top. I really hate this particular line of reasoning that Kent is going down.
Is it all bombarded? I mean, you go on and on this.
What's up?
There's not much reasoning in his head.
I mean, this is the man who thinks that a comet landing at the North Pole from out in space would cool the Earth down, even though even very basic high school level physics will tell you no, there's no temperature a comet could be such that a significantly sized comet wouldn't add energy to the Earth rather than taking it away. I mean...
I'm not convinced Kent's ever taken any course in physics at any level.
I mean, yeah. This is extremely frustrating very, very quickly.
Problem right here. Nobody's ever seen this happen. Then...
Actually, that's not true.
Okay, yeah, we'll take a drink, because we actually have seen protoplanetary disks with protoplanets forming right now in real time via things like the Hubble telescope and now the James Webb Space Telescope. And also, Nestle20 says Earth's core is hot from latent heat of formation, radioactive decay, and some sources I read say there is also nuclear fission going on down there. I'm not sure about that last one. I mean, there is spontaneous fission happening. So if you have nuclides that can decay via fission spontaneously, then they will do so at some rate. So I don't know how significant that is in terms of the heat, but it is definitely true that there is fission happening. Now, it's probably not much induced fission, which might be what you mean, but yeah. Also, Space Dragon says apparently he doesn't think the impact was specifically the North Pole, according to Wikipedia. I mean, I feel like I've heard him say that it was, but maybe I was just misinterpreting him, or maybe I'm misremembering. All right, here we go.
How did life start? Nobody's ever seen that happen, but they believe it did. So,
okay.
Yes, because things are alive, Kent. We think life began.
Yeah. And
because things are alive right now.
Here's the other weird thing to me, right? Let's say that we grant it to Kent that life cannot happen in any kind of naturalistic way, right? It requires a god to produce life out of a previously dead Earth, right? Or inanimate Earth, I suppose. Okay, guess what? That still leaves literally all of evolution intact. humans are still sharing a common ancestor with chimpanzees and gorillas and bobcats and pine trees and bacteria, if that's the case, right? It doesn't actually help much. It might get you to deism or theism, right? But it doesn't get you to young Earth creationism.
It doesn't get you to a global flood 4,400 years ago.
Yeah. In fact, this is actually one of the things that frustrates me when I talk to Sal Cordova. He will dive into this whole thing about, like, well, I feel like topoisomerase probably couldn't have evolved. And I'm like, okay, but, like, even if it did, you realize that still doesn't get you anywhere even close to young Earth creationism, right? If topoisomerase is the big barrier for evolution, that still leaves humans being genetically related to slime mold. Which, like, I don't think Sal's okay with that. But his arguments in no way form any problem for that. So it's one of the things that frustrates me a little bit, because it's like, look, man, you're trying to show that humans don't have any relationship to chimpanzees, but your arguments are leaving open humans being related to actual slime molds. It's not helping your case. But whatever, I'm not in charge of who argues what.
I will tell them, that what they think is silly. And they'll say, well, you think all the dogs came from 2 dogs on Noah's Ark? I say, well, yeah. Do you think all the dogs came from a rock?
No one thinks that.
No.
We're taking a drink. You already admitted that everyone tells you they don't think that. And then you're just like, but I say they do anyway.
So dumb. That's such a dumb thing to say.
It really is.
Does he not have any self-awareness of, like, how he looks when he says things like that?
The thing is, I don't think he cares how he looks to most people. He only cares how he looks to people who agree with him. Because one of the things is, now, while Kent says that this is all about winning souls or whatever, he's preaching to the choir every single time, right?
Yeah.
Like, I do not think that there is a significant portion of the population who has become Christian because of Kent Hovind. Like, I don't think he's really very convincing to non-Christians. Now, there are people who go get baptized at Dinosaur Adventureland. And I don't know this for a fact, but I'm willing to bet that most of them are probably people who were culturally Christian and always sort of felt like they were kind of Christian-y and they kind of believed it, but they didn't make it a big part of their lives. And then when they go to his park, they feel like it's time to rededicate their lives to Christianity. And if they hadn't been previously baptized, well, now's the time.
Now's the time.
But that's not quite the same as taking, like, a well-educated, scientifically literate non-Christian, convincing them of the truth of young Earth creationism to the point that they now then go get baptized. Which is what he's pretending that he can do. But I don't think it's happened. Now, if it has, and you're that person or you know that person, please get a hold of me, because I would love to talk to someone who was actually well-informed about science, either wasn't a Christian or wasn't Kent's kind of Christian, and then became Kent's kind of Christian as a result of his convincing scientific evidence. That would be a very interesting discussion, and I want to have it if that has ever happened. So if you or anyone you know is in that boat, please reach out.
And it shocks them. Wow, wait a minute. That is crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy. That's why they don't believe it. I'm just going to take another drink for a joke that didn't land, I guess. Oh, hey, Maya Atkinson is here. Hi, Maya.
Am I?
Evolutionist life verse, saying to a stock, thou art my father, and to a stone, thou hast brought me forth. From my dad's life verse, Lord have mercy on my son, for he is lunatic.
So it's in the
so
Bible
vexed.
where it says we came from a rock, but not what evolution teaches.
Yeah, it is weird that the only place you can find someone saying that is the Bible.
Well, the Bible's right about something if it's Kent's dad's life verse that his son is a lunatic.
Burn.
That's a self-burn from Kent.
Yeah, basically.
So, here we have a flood in the days of Noah. Where is the evidence for this? The Bible says in Genesis chapter 6, the earth was corrupt before God. And the earth was filled with violence, and God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said to Noah, everybody's corrupt, the earth's full of violence, I'm going to destroy the world, build an ark. So Noah said to the boys, hey, go for wood, we're going to build us a boat.
That was a joke that didn't land. It was a pun on gopher wood.
Yes, it was.
Take a drink.
And so they went for wood. Well,
Oh, it did land. It didn't land with either of us, though.
All right, I'm putting that drink back. No,
Gopher wood. People have argued what gopher wood is. Some people think it's white oak.
I don't care.
I don't know. Other people think that word means laminated. Make the ark out of laminated wood. If you cross-grain wood, you turn it cross-grain to itself, it becomes much stronger. The guys who do karate will tell you, if you're going to break a board, if you break it with the grain, it's not hard. Get two boards cross-grain to each other and break it.
Yeah, that is harder. He's getting something right. Take a drink, I guess.
Break a half-inch piece of plywood. Or everyone, Robbie.
Half-inch piece of plywood? That actually sounds doable. Half an inch is not that much. Plywood isn't that strong.
We told him to rip that plywood for us. He was working for us. Poor guy, he didn't know what we meant. It's just a term used in construction. Rip this plywood.
Vishanti asks, wait, who thinks it's laminated? Some people. Didn't you hear, Kent? Some people. It's like some researchers believe on ancient aliens. Who knows who it is? Space Dragon, who's been a member for 3 months and is at the amulet level, says, I don't know how to feel about the... start over. I don't know how to feel about the Ark was built out of gopher AIGs. I did not see where that was going at first. We'll take a drink for that. That's pretty good, actually. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, that was pretty good. DM Wing for $10 says, little known fact, gopher wood is radiation and heat shielded, and also boats built from it are bigger on the inside. That would explain everything.
That's how they did it.
Yeah, no, that gets it.
It was a TARDIS arc.
Yeah. Which also, I think we're $40 away from the next Feather episode.
Nice.
And there's currently a Feather video rendering right now on my render farm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We got a Feather video the other day, and the next video I made, I had already promised someone to use their fan art. So I made it the next video after that, which is currently rendering. And if you're a member or patron, you can expect that video to go live at the latest day after tomorrow, but I'm hoping for it to go live tomorrow around evening my time. So there you go.
A sheet of plywood. We came back and he was a huge, strong guy. He had actually ripped about that far down the sheet of plywood. I said, what have you done? He said, you told me to rip the plywood. I don't see how you guys do this so straight. It was so funny. Well, Robbie, we use a saw.
Yeah, I don't know if that was funny. I don't know. I'm just going to take it.
Okay.
Yeah, Esmini says, Feather? You mean feeder? I do mean feeder, yes. Feeder. Savage Cobra for $5 says, gopherwood is apparently synonymous with sapient pearwood. I'm going to need a citation for that one. Boom. Citation needed. The best GIF. By the way, I'm still really happy that that's one of the most popular citation needed GIFs on Twitter.
Good one.
I know, right? And it's got Klingon in it. It says, Kaharko, which means I won't believe you.
I won't believe you.
Yeah.
Kent.
Some people think gopher wood means laminated. I don't know. Okay, we'll find out when we get to heaven. But
yeah, see, he said it. Some people. I should answer Vishanti's question of who thinks that. Some people.
Some people.
If that's not good enough for you, then I don't know. You have way too high standards for evidence and logic and citations. Pfft, come on. It's some people.
After the flood was over, Noah's son Shem had a boy and named him Arphaxad. Now, who on earth would name a kid Arphaxad? I don't know.
Probably someone whose language isn't English, because it's a Hebrew name. Right?
I don't know why he needs to make fun of names randomly.
Yeah.
What does it have to do with whatever his point's going to be?
Probably I don't know.
But Shem did. Now, don't you think Arphaxad, one day, he got big enough. He started to become aware of the world around him. It's neat when that happens to kids. All of a sudden, it's like, thumb. They'll look at it for hours. Where did that thing come from? Has that been there all along? Or foot, wow. Anyway, I'm sure one day Arphaxad got big enough. He's sitting on Grandpa Noah's lap, and he looks around. He says, hey, Grandpa Noah, How come we're the only people in the whole world? Eventually that thought's going to cross his mind, don't you think?
I'm actually not sure, because kids tend to assume that like whatever is around them is just how the world operates, like by default.
Yeah.
It takes a very long time for people to realize that things might possibly be another way. And by then, often they are already at least somewhat informed as to why things are the way they are. But maybe.
Where is everybody? And Grandpa Noah is going to tell him the story about the flood. I am convinced that Adam and Eve were able to tell the story of the creation to many generations.
I really want to know what the point of this is.
I wouldn't split a
hope
church
he makes one. He might not.
I mean, it's a very good chance he won't.
over it like some people would, but I don't think Adam and Eve had a belly button.
Some people, again.
That would be a great object lesson for the great-great-great-great-grandkids. Hey, kid, come here, look at this. Wow, Grandpa, how come you don't have a belly button? Well, let me tell you a story, son, you know. That was
a joke that didn't land.
Yeah, he keeps laughing periodically while he's telling this story. I don't really know why.
I don't either. I think he thinks he's telling jokes.
Yeah,
it's just an object lesson. I suspect they didn't. There's no reason for them to have one.
So that's actually an interesting thing, though. It's an interesting question, like philosophically. So the reason people have belly buttons, right, as I'm pretty sure everyone here knows, is because that's where your umbilical cord went between your mom and into your digestive system, essentially, so that you could get nutrients from your mom in the womb. Okay, well, Adam and Eve, not having ever been in the womb, don't need a belly button because they never had an umbilical cord. So Kent supposes that they were born without umbilical cords. You know what? If you're going to take that story as literal history, I actually agree. I think that's a reasonable assumption. I think that if God had given them belly buttons, that would be weird, because it would be an indication of events that never happened. Fair enough. Okay, here's why that's a problem. There are other bits of evidence all throughout the physical universe that indicate extremely great ages. In fact, for people, I think including Kent, who think that distant starlight was just created en route, it also includes things like the explosion of stars that never existed, right? Because if you have a supernova that happens from 1,000,000 light years away, that star never actually existed as a star. God created it as a stellar remnant, and he just put a fake explosion in the light headed towards Earth. What? That's lying. Kent has already pointed out right here that you can make things fully functional without necessarily lying about their history, even if you create things relatively recently. Except that that's not what evidently God did if we have to take this 6,000-year timeline seriously. So what is it that makes God a liar by Kent's own standards, simply by saying Adam and Eve didn't have belly buttons? So thanks, Kent, for making your God a liar, indicating that no one should believe you about this. Also, we have a couple super chats. Too Young to Feel As Old for $10 says, for the application of epidermal growths that form a distinctive outer covering or plumage on both avian and some non-avian dinosaurs and other archosaurs, with, of course, a feeder emoji. And for $5, Your Friendly Atheist says, AIG is a big old sack of packages? A large old package of sacks, perhaps? Either works, I guess, and we will take a drink for that one. And thank you very much to both of you. All right, let's get a little bit more Kent in here.
By the way, it's the fad in California now. They go to people who do ear piercing and body piercing and all this. They have some kind of surgery. They eliminate your belly button.
I've literally never heard of that. Whether in California or otherwise.
It's all the fad.
Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna add a poll. Not a poll. Yeah, a poll. I don't know what I'm talking about. Look, guys, we're 50 drinks in. I don't entirely know what's happening anymore. All right, have you ever heard of people having their belly buttons surgically obscured? Is what we're going to go with. We will have yes, no, and then I will say not humans, only turtles have. Yeah, turtles.
Only turtles.
Not humans, only turtles. All right, there we go. Those are the poll options. Please vote responsibly. I don't know what that means. Here we go. Let's get more Kent in.
It's gone. They say you can't tell it was ever there.
How would you even do that? There would be a scar. You can't just do surgery to remove a part of the body and then just not leave a scar. You know what?
Or surgery, magic.
This is
It's a miracle.
So dumb.
What it is.
This is a citation needed sort of period, Kent. I want a citation for your belly bud erasure nonsense. I have no idea what he's talking about.
I bet someone trolled him and told him this, and he believed it.
Yeah, that could be. Or it could be that it was like someone somewhere did that in California as like a weird body modification thing. And then Kent thought that like one person doing it means it's now a trend.
It's a fad.
Yeah.
It's all the rage.
Flesh reforming like Odo. Good Star Trek reference. I'll bet that there's a good question. Did Odo have a belly button when he was in the shape of a humanoid? I'm going to go with no, since he couldn't even make a reasonable nose.
Yeah, probably not.
Plus, that clothing he was wearing was actually part of his body. Like that Bajoran like militia uniform, that was part of his body. So he definitely didn't when he was wearing that, because that's not even wearing something. That's just his body.
Yeah.
So Soulcat says, just Google belly button removal, and they said exactly that. Kind of pointless as it leaves a scar. Yeah. How could it not leave a scar?
I think the trees would have had rings because trees give the laminate effect.
Okay, we're into tree rings for some reason. Just off belly buttons. So now he's trying to give reasons why trees would have rings, even though they were created as adult trees, while he doesn't think humans would have belly buttons, I guess. And the reason for that is that it's practical for humans to have ringed trees so that the trees have a grain so that you can laminate wood, which I kind of follow why that is a thought that he's having. I'm not sure that entirely follows, but I kind of get it. So I'm not going to say it's so stupid we should drink, but I will say we should definitely drink for Mothra. Okay.
Mothra.
With rings. Yeah.
They would have had rings. Adam would probably have.
Navel?
Okay, so here's some countering that if trees had rings, why wouldn't Adam have a navel? Now, Ken already gave an answer, but I'm actually curious to see what his response to this as a direct question is. I actually do think that's an interesting question, and it's one I would ask.
That's why the church in California split over that question. Did Adam and Eve have a belly button?
I would need a citation for that one.
For a church to split.
Now, to be fair, I've seen churches split for some pretty silly reasons. Like when I was very early on in my time with my human family, after they adopted me to help bring me into the human world, right? There was a church split because some subgroup of the church thought that while it was fine to keep using the King James version of the Bible in church, that it was silly to require everyone to use it outside of church. And that caused an actual church split. Because my dad and a few other people were like, no, let people read what Bible they want. And the rest of the church was like, no, the King James only. So, yeah. Also, Horseflesh has gifted 1 Dapper Dinosaur membership, which went to Kristen Mills. So we will take a drink for that. And Kristen Mills, feel free to connect your Discord to your YouTube and join the Discord. Those of you who don't know, after these, we have a little bit of an after show where we watch a few episodes of usually Power Rangers. Because it's goofy and it's something you can watch while drunk.
Fun time.
Yeah. Look, as someone who's an unironic Power Rangers fan, I also love to make fun of it. Kind of like Star Trek, right? I love Star Trek and I love to make fun of Star Trek. So, anyway, here we go.
And the one church, they went across town and started a new church, of course, called the Church of the Navalites. Like I said, I wouldn't.
That's another joke that didn't land. We're taking a drink.
No, they...
Your friendly atheist. Your friendly atheist who's been a member for 1 month and is at the tetrapod level says, I couldn't imagine fighting over Adam like that. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't either, but what do I know?
Split a church
I don't
over.
know why it matters, and I don't know why anyone would care.
I mean, I'm pretty sure this isn't a real story. And I don't think he's intending it to be a real story. He's telling it with the cadence of a joke. So, to be fair
I
to
think
Kent...
he's referencing a very specific event that happened.
Really? Oh, maybe.
I think he is. Yeah.
I wouldn't preach it as doctrine, but I think it's interesting. Anyway, Noah then is going to tell the story to our...
So he doesn't actually have a reason. He just tells a story about a church that's split, but then he just doesn't answer the question. Great. Good job, Kent.
That's what he's known for.
That is very frustrating. If I were in that
Interesting
audience...
question. I don't know. I'll have to do some research on that.
Yeah. All right, we're going to end this poll, by the way. And so, no one. So again, the question was, have you ever heard of people having their belly buttons surgically obscured? No, 64%. Not humans, only turtles, 25%. Yes, 10%. So I'm going to go ahead and say that while this might be a thing that people do, it wasn't something you could reasonably call a trend, whether it be in California or anywhere else. Also, Kent seems to have a giant hate for California. I don't entirely understand it. I mean, look, I have my complaints about various aspects of California, but like, I don't just hate California for some reason. But I feel like Kent does. And it's a little weird to me. For one thing, I like a lot of the weather in California. California has a pretty nice climate in a lot of it. Not all of it, but a lot of it.
Back said about the flood, or Shem.
Well, okay, so Tesla Ranger says California is a blue state. Yeah, but like, so it's like Massachusetts. Well, technically it's a Commonwealth, but whatever. Like, he doesn't complain about Massachusetts. And I mean, just like he complains about San Francisco being like a gay hotspot, like Massachusetts has gay hotspots too. He doesn't complain about those. Like, it's weird. Or like, I believe Maryland at this point was pretty solidly blue when he gave this. He doesn't talk about like how much he hates Maryland. I don't know, it's a little weird to me.
Would. Actually, Noah and Shem lived long enough to tell the story to a whole bunch of their grandkids. Now, Shem lived long enough to know Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There is a question of whether he knew Jacob or not. And Eric, you might be aware of the controversy here. How old was Terah when Abram was born?
That's so controversial, I'm sure, whether or not he knew Jacob.
And actually, this is one of the reasons...
I'm sure there's been church splits over it.
Probably. This is actually one of the reasons why it's hard to take the genealogies literally. Because the thing is that according to the genealogies, if you take them literally, then yeah, Shem could possibly have known Jacob. But there's absolutely no indication of the text of people from more than like a couple generations interacting.
Right.
Just don't get it. But it would seem like it would be fairly significant if they did, because you get a lot of father-son interactions. You even get some grandfather-grandson interactions. Less frequently, you know, mother-son or mother-daughter interactions. But like family interactions like that are a big part of Genesis. But at no point do we get a story about someone visiting their great-great-grandfather. Why not? And also we get things like, you know, Abraham living around polytheists. Why didn't he just say, hey, how come you didn't ask your granddad about this? Because he's just, you know, still alive, and or not your granddad, but like your great-great-grandfather, who's still alive and who was like, you know, just fresh off the ark. But that's not a thing that happens. Instead, Abraham goes off saying things like, hey, you know, we're going to serve the Lord and we're going to ignore all this polytheist stuff that you guys are doing and sacrificing to other gods. I serve the Lord. But, like, okay, but like, why don't you reference that? And I think the only reason that that's the case is because you weren't intended to take these ages literally. I don't think the author of Genesis, or these parts of Genesis, because I tend to agree with the document, or the documentary I apologize. There was not one author of Genesis, but there were probably more like 5. But anyway, I don't think the authors of those sections of Genesis intended for you to take those ages literally. And I think that's some evidence of it. Also, Silent Tetrapod with a P says, AIG is a big old sack of British steamed pudding. Ah, look at that spotted dick reference. Nice. Yeah. Also, the word pudding is weird. Because pudding sometimes means sausage, and other times it means sweet dessert stuff. So, yeah, weird stuff. And also, technically, haggis is a sausage if you think about it.
Yeah.
70 or 130. We might have to shift the last three, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, shift them over 60 years.
Why?
Because of
I don't know.
Because
other references in Scripture. Okay, if you read in a timeline, on my timeline that I have, my chart.
So the
there are some
timeline's not even consistent.
Correct.
There you go.
reference notes here about this. And
Oh, by the way, we're about $19 away from another feather video, in case anyone cares.
Henry Morris has a good note about this discrepancy of 60 years in one of his books, which is referred to in here. Doesn't matter. Certainly Noah. Either way, Shem lived long enough to know Abraham and Isaac and possibly Jacob.
Does this have to do with anything?
I don't know. But also, Border Barbecue says sausage is just ground meat inside of a casing. Not quite. There can be other things besides ground meat, like, for instance, herbs or just blood, like in black sausage.
Okay, depending if you shift the chart over to 60 years or not.
Not that black sausage is just blood. It's, other things. And it's black pudding is usually what it's termed. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
But just somebody will get a hold of you someday and say, oh, that's not accurate, because, they'll give you some other reference of how old somebody was. And by the time you chase down all the genealogies, it still is a little confusing, but it possibly should be shifted over 60 years. I don't know. It's not.
Sure. You know what, Kent? Fine. I don't even care to have a citation. I don't see how it matters. I don't know what point you're trying to make. Just whatever.
A big deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, the story of the flood is going to be passed down generation after generation, and they can all go back and verify it with Noah. I mean, he's still alive. So
why doesn't Abraham do that with his countrymen?
He didn't think of it. Slipped his mind in his old age.
I hate that so much. Because it's just like...
That's what I would have done.
Like, it just makes so much of Genesis nonsensical. Right? And why would you do that to your own text? I don't know. Whatever. We'll hit play.
today, 4,400 years later, there are still 270 surviving flood stories that have been found. That'll be a quiz question. How many flood legends have been found?
What a stupid quiz question.
I know.
Here's
How
the thing.
many?
Yeah, here's the thing about quizzes and
Designed
education.
by Dwayne Gish.
No, dinosaurs by design. By Dwayne
Dinosaurs
Gish.
by Design by
the way,
Dwayne Gish.
Gutsick Gibbon has a review of that book where she physically has the book. It's great. If you're here and you don't know who Gutsick Gibbon is, first, how did you get here? Second, go check out Gutsick Gibbon's channel. It's great.
Absolutely, yeah.
Jessica for $1.99 says, AIG are a treasure trove of tiny trouser trouts. That is so much alliteration. I love it. Yeah, we take a drink for that. That's awesome. So here's the thing with education, right? There's very little point in getting people to remember specific numbers, right? If it's an important number to know in the field that you're in, you're going to learn it because you're going to have to keep using it. If it's not, then it's the kind of thing you can just look up. Quizzes and tests should be about understanding of the material, not your ability to memorize stupid facts that you can just look up.
Not little trivia here or there.
Right. So, this is one of the reasons why I think, even in the context of young earth creationism, Kent is a piss-poor educator.
He's really bad.
And also, so why might there be lots of flood stories? I don't know, maybe because people tend to settle near water, and water sometimes floods.
Yep.
That's literally all you need to explain this. And then, like, he'll pick out, like, asinine, quote-unquote, commonalities, like, well, some people survived on a boat. Well, yeah, because you have to have a source for the story. How does that happen? People had to survive. What's a good way to survive water? I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, a boat.
Those are 270. 270 existing flood legends from cultures all over the world.
Also, many of those flood legends only were recorded after extensive contact with Christians, which means they might...
It's the same story.
Well, it also means they might just be derived from Christians telling the stories.
They're telling the same story.
Yeah.
And when you read them, it's amazing to see the similarity between the biblical account
that you would
and the
expect.
Yeah, well, there's not that much similarity, though. Like, almost all the similarities outside of places like Mesopotamia are just like, without this, how would you have a flood legend? Like, oh, people survived, and sometimes they took animals. Yeah, that's a pretty basic, someone survived a giant flood. And you know how you get giant flood stories? By having regular floods that you exaggerate over time, because that's how humans work.
Humans do exaggerate quite a bit.
Yep.
these flood legends 4,400 years later. For instance, the Hawaiian legend says, long after the death of Kunihana, the first man, the world became a wicked, terrible place to live.
By the way, this flood legend is one of those that's only been recorded after significant contact between Christians, including Christian missionaries, and the native Hawaiians. There's no reason to suspect that this has to have been a pre-Christian contact story that the Hawaiians were telling. We don't have any evidence of that.
There was one good man left. His name was Nu'u. He made a great canoe with a house on it, filled it with animals. The waters came up over all the earth and killed all the people. Only Nu'u and his family were saved. Now, here we have a legend that is very similar to the Bible. You have one
It's not even all that similar.
family saved in a great canoe full of animals from a flood.
If you have a great flood story and you still have survivors as well as livestock, it's pretty hard to understand how you would have that story and then not have a story about someone saving themselves and the livestock.
Right.
Right? Like, this is a pretty basic logical requirement. So I don't think that that's a very close connection. It's almost like flood legends are super easy to develop.
The Chinese, the oldest known story, I believe, in China is called the Hai King Classic, which tells about a guy named Fu Hai that they say is the father of their civilization. The story goes that Fu Hai, his wife, 3 sons, and 3 daughters.
As far as I know, no, there isn't a mention of 3 sons and 3 daughters in it. Now, I'm not exactly an expert on this legend. I don't know all of the details, but my recollection is that there is no mention of those. And also, you'll notice that Kent doesn't give us any external citations as to where this comes from. His best citation so far has just been other creationists. Yeah, Gish. Maybe cite an actual Chinese text, Kent. It's not like they don't get translated into English. You can find Chinese texts in English. Why don't you cite one of those? You know what?
He can't do his own research.
We'll do another citation needed, Kent. Because you could cite something. You choose not to. Just like when you chose to cite something in your quote-unquote dissertation with the amazing citation of KJV Get Book Title. Which is just
Classic.
top-notch scholarly work
Classic.
there. Yeah.
Escaped a great flood. After the flood, they were the only people.
Also, Liz D says, Dapper, the Hawaiian legend also says Nu'u mistakenly sacrificed to the wrong god until the right one came down and told him to stop. Interesting. I was unaware of that. Yeah. That is a pretty big difference.
Very different. Kent left that out.
Left on Earth, and they repopulated the world. So here you have a story with one man, 3 sons, and 3 daughters, and his wife, 8 people.
Oh, and of course, it's also Dinosaurs by Design by Dwayne Gish. So our citation is just Dwayne Gish. I'm going to take a drink, and we're going to talk about proper citation. Okay. One of the things you learn very early on if you're getting any kind of degree in any kind of scholarly field is that your citations need to go back to some kind of primary source. Now, what that means is different in different fields, right? So if you're like doing physics, your citations need to go to people actually doing experiments, or maybe to people doing meta-studies where they're taking a bunch of experiments and combining all of it, right? Now, in history, which is where we're roughly in the history area, you need to go back to primary source documents in cases. The only time it's acceptable to cite a secondary work, which is what Dinosaurs by Design is at best, is if you're trying to demonstrate what the consensus in the field is currently, right? So a lot of times if you're doing like a history paper, whether it be for publication in a peer-reviewed journal or whether it just be for getting a degree, first you want to say, okay, what's the state of the field? What's the consensus? There you cite secondary works. You talk about what historians have said. But then when you actually dig into the history, you cite primary sources. By primary sources, I mean actual documents from the time period in question, or as close to it as possible that talk about the subject. So in order to cite this properly, you can say, hey, Dwayne Gish lists this as a flood legend connected to Noah. And that's great background information to tell us why you're talking about it, what the current state of young Earth creationist history and, like mythic studies or whatever are, right? But then you go to the actual original source. Give us the Chinese texts that report this so that we can go check, even if only in translation. Instead, Kent just takes Dwayne Gish's word for it. Why? Well, because Dwayne Gish agrees with him. That's it. As far as I can tell, that's the only reason he takes Dwayne Gish unquestioningly. Because the thing is, look, he wouldn't just believe this if instead of Dwayne Gish, it said like Niles Eldridge or Stephen Jay Gould or Carl Sagan, right? He would dismiss it out of hand if it disagreed with him, and that was the name on it. Also, My Unfinished Journey for $2 says AIG are an itty-bitty inkwell of inky inchworms. Nice. I'll take a drink. All right. So here we go. After talking a little bit about how horribly bad Kent Hovind is at citing anything, basically.
Saved on a boat from a flood. I don't know that the Fuhai story mentions the animals, but it would tie in.
I mean, if I had to guess, I would say it probably does, because again, how would you explain the continued existence of things like livestock or even wild animals otherwise?
Toltec Indians in Mexico, their oldest. This is in the book Dinosaurs by Design, the red hardback book, right there by Dwayne Gish. These are where I got these pictures from.
Which is weird to me because I don't know what that has to do with dinosaurs. Because you would think if I picked up a title called Dinosaurs by Design, it would be about the intelligent design of dinosaurs.
You would think so.
Instead, there's like, hey guys, did you know that they have a flood myth in China? Like, okay. Too Young to Feel This Old says, wait, the proper citation isn't giving the audience people's phone numbers and email addresses? Not normally. It can be.
Call them and ask them.
It could be if that's literally the only way you can get it. And what you're trying to establish is that the person in question said the thing that you said they said. But it doesn't count for like actually establishing that the thing they said is true. Right? So like in very specific circumstances, that might be an okay-ish way to cite something. But it would have to be just to demonstrate that the person in question says the thing you said they said, which is almost never what you need to do in a scholarly work anyway. So, as a rule, no, it would not be an okay form of citation. But there are weird circumstances where maybe that might be okay.
The Toltec Indians in Mexico. Now, he only has a few of the stories, okay? A guy called me a few weeks ago that is collecting as many stories as can be found. He's going to publish a book with all just the stories in it. Somebody keeps sending me every couple months. They send me, because they're doing research, they're spending their lifetime researching Tower of Babel stories.
Now, that's one I haven't heard very frequently. And also, Vishanti asked the Who Indians in Mexico. I couldn't hear him. He might have meant Toltec. I don't know. I don't trust Kent to be able to reliably say the name of any native group in Mexico. So, yeah.
Indian cultures that will say, oh yeah, there was a time when everybody spoke one language, but now we all speak different languages because, and sometimes the stories get...
Look, here's the thing, right? Cultures come up with myths about why things are the way they are. And there are going to be common tropes, right? Like there are tricksters in many mythologies. There are legends about how people became more than one people group, which then plays into why are there more than one language? Right? Like these are natural questions that you ask and you come up with myths about them. And one of the more obvious things to say is that, well, people were all created as one group because you notice the extreme similarity between different people groups. And then it becomes reasonable to say, well, then they probably had one language and then that must have split up. And you come up with a myth about it. The fact that more than one cultural group has myths about basic aspects of reality isn't a surprise, nor is it evidence that those myths derive from a common source on its own. Okay, here we go.
Kind of wild, because somebody, cut off a snake's head and the snake, bit him on the foot and said, now you're going to speak a new language.
Yeah, that totally sounds like the Tower of Babel. I'm just taking a drink for apparently literally any myth about the origin of different languages is just evidence for the Bible. My goodness. Kent has just dropped any pretense that these things need to be similar.
The stories get kind of wild, the mythology, but the idea is universal, that everybody did speak one language at one time.
Hey.
Forked tongue, I guess they would, wouldn't they? The Toltec Indian legend says...
He says Toltec. I'm almost certain he means Toltec.
Probably.
I've never heard of a Toltec group of people in Mexico. I mean, if you have... Here, you know, another poll. All right, we're going to do a poll. Have
And is
you...
5'7" a literal Tower of Babel? I like it.
Have you heard of the Toltecs? Oh, S, there we go. In Mexico. Yes, no, and it's a kind of turtle.
I
Those are the
like
options.
turtles.
Options are yes, no, and it's a kind of turtle. Let me know.
The first world lasted 1,716 years and was destroyed by a great flood. Only one family named Coxcox survived.
It is Toltec. It's right there on screen. There's a
Reading
second
is hard
T.
for Kent.
Oh my goodness, it's right on screen. I have to take a drink. What is happening? Oh.
Dinosaurs by Design by Dwayne.
Also,
Gish.
here's a cool thing about the Toltecs. Oh, yes, it's as Vishanti points out, that's not how you say Kosh Kosh. Yeah, it's Kosh Kosh, not Cox Cox. I'm taking another drink for Cox Cox.
Oh, man.
Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start with this. First of all, Bent, would you like to take a wild stab in the dark as to how many written records survive from the Toltecs?
1,
No.
0,
Yes.
1,000. Okay.
No, 0. It's 0. We don't have any writings from the Toltecs. We don't have any idea for certain what they believed about anything. The best we have is what later people like the Mayans said about them, because the Mayans inherited a lot of aspects of their culture, as did a lot of other, like, Central American people groups. And also, Kosh Kosh, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's a Nahuatl word. Like, that sounds like a Nahuatl name. Maybe I'm wrong about that, though. But if it is Nahuatl, then it's not Toltec, it's Nahuatl. And maybe you should go with that. I don't know. So yeah, not only is this, again, an improper citation for this claim, the claim is absurd on the face of it, that the Toltecs had this legend. Now, maybe the Mayans said the Toltecs had this legend, but that's a Mayan legend about the Toltecs, not a Toltec legend. And that's an important distinction. Cox. I hate you, Kent.
Well, 1,716 years is interesting because the Bible says it was 1656.
So not the same. Goop23 for $2 says, AIG is a bag of mispronounced kosh. Amazing. And then Horseflesh says AIG are a collection of kosh. We're going to take another drink for that. Hey, we're about $11 away.
Very close.
Add up the dates in the Bible. Now, I don't know if there are gaps in the genealogies, and that discussion would go for hours and hours. You know, there are some problems between the chronologies and the genealogies.
But I thought the Bible was completely inerrant, Kent. Then there can't be any conflicts. There can't be any mismatches.
No contradictions allowed.
Oh, weird. Let's just take a drink for Kent invalidating his entire hermeneutical principle. Good job, Kent. You completely invalidated literally everything you believe about the Bible just now. Fun time.
Doesn't even know.
It's like when he says that Timothy was written by Timothy. Like, why would you do this?
Why would you think that? Why would you say that? Why would you not double check ahead of time every time?
It's
you know you're getting it wrong. Does no one correct him ever? Are people afraid to correct Kent?
I think it's mostly that they're afraid to correct Kent, because Kent does not take correction, and the only people he's listening to are the people that are surrounding him, and they're all sick of him. Also, I ended the poll, and we have you heard of Tolex, Mexico? It's a kind of turtle, won with 53%. So apparently Tolex are a kind of Mexican turtle.
Never
Interesting.
knew.
I did not know that. No, it was then 26%, and then 20% of people said yes. Those of you who have heard of Tolex, let me know who or what the Tolex are. Okay, now we're gonna hit play. You know what? No, we're gonna stop it here. We're 7:57 my time. It's time to just cut it off. Bent, do you have anything that you want to plug before we get off air here?
Yes, tomorrow night I will be on Top Hats Off playing Power Rangers Jungle Beast, I think is the name of it.
Almost Jungle Beasts.
Jungle Beasts, I was very close. So come watch. I have music, link in the description. Download it, listen to it.
Also, a wish list
Enjoy
for Bent is in the description.
And I also have an Amazon wish list in the description, which has been updated. People have been getting things from it, and it's been amazing. Thank you all so much.
Mm-hmm.
There's more there. If you feel so inclined, feel free. Otherwise, don't worry about it.
Yeah. All right. So I also have a wish list in the description. Feel free to get anything from there if you want to. Also, sometimes people don't send me their name with that. And if you do send me your name with that, I will thank you. And hopefully on air, if I forget, let me know. But also, if you get me something and it's perhaps not directly sent by Amazon, it's like a third-party seller or something, and you want me to thank you, let me know. In fact, if you get something from my wish list and you definitely want me to thank you, it's probably safest to reach out either after it's delivered or before or whatever, just to actually make sure. Also, Savage Cobra for $11 says feeders forever, which does in fact get us to the next feeder video. So the next video I do after this one will be feeders. So yeah, if you want me to thank you, sometimes there is not a card in there, so I would need you to reach out and let me know. People have recently got me stuff, and I'm not sure who got me all of it. Like, for instance, I got some Klingon dice, believe it or not. And I don't know who sent me those, but I really appreciate it. They're really cool. They have little Klingon symbols on them, as well as, numbers and whatnot. But let's take a look at the calendar and see what we have coming up. Okay, so on the 9th, we are going to be doing the premiere of the, what is it? It's one of the movies. Oh yeah, it's the Bad Reasons Birds Aren't Dinosaurs with David Menton, the movie. Then on Saturday, the 11th, I had previously said that it might be the Cambrian Bunny Awards. That is going to be the 18th. The 11th didn't work for one of my other panel members, so we're doing it the 18th. That's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern, which is 6 p.m. Pacific. And if you're in other time zones, I guess just do the math. On the 11th, I'm hoping to have another Dapper Reacts, which will probably just be a follow-up to the Catholic Creationism thing that we did this past week.
It feels really good.
Yeah, I had fun with it. If you haven't seen that,
good.
Check it out. Vishanti is there, and she's wearing some beautiful feathers on a little ear decoration. I don't know what the noun is for that. Vishanti, if you know what noun to use for that, let me know, because I sure as heck don't. And she made it a super chat goal that if people, when she's on, do $50 in super chats, she'll wear them again. So we did get that. So it's an ear cuff, apparently. Ear cuff is just the name for it. I was hoping for a much fancier word, but I guess ear cuff works.
It works.
So yeah, hopefully that's what's going on the 11th. I will be inviting Vishanti back so that we hopefully conclude that video. On the 14th, we're going to be doing another Kent with Bent. And I believe we're going to have a special guest, but I'm going to leave that as a secret. So if you want to see us with a special guest, hang out. Look,
special guest. Yay!
It's not going to be a new guest, so there's a fairly limited pool, but still. Then Then the 16th is going to be, let me double check. So I need to check on my YouTube studio. I need to only look at my unlisted video. It's going to be premiering. I believe it's going to be, Amazing Animals Obvious Design. That was an ICR little podcast thing that I managed to squeeze into 3 whole episodes, where people basically just take different animals and say, look how cool this animal is. Obviously, it couldn't evolve. And then I get to talk about how cool that animal is, as well as how we know it did evolve. And that's going to be a 3-part series. The first episode is coming out not this Thursday, but the next one. So that will be Thursday the 16th. And that is as far ahead as we are going to be looking. Guys, thank you so much. Like I always say, if you're interested, check out the membership program, the Patreon, all that stuff. If you are a member or a patron, make sure you link your Discord to the appropriate account, and then come over to Discord in our general voice chat, where I'm going to stream some Power Rangers.
Yes.
And with that, we are out of here. Thank you very much, everybody. We got the feeders. I will see you, hopefully, in 2 days. Or no, tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.
Tomorrow for Power Rangers on Top Hats Off.
We'll see you tomorrow night.
Which I also need to schedule. But whatever. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Bent Hovend, Tapioca Weasel, Denny5252, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, San, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, Elleran Teller, Dr. Tapioca Weasel, and Pat L. Dennis. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if an annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.